Welcome back to the M Hour YouTube channel, the home of album reviews, discography guides and think pieces. So today's video is a little bit different but also very exciting for me because it marks the first ever cross-channel collaboration with who else but my good buddy Mr. Caligeur. And we've obviously done collaborations before. We've even done a collaboration where it's like, okay, we did this video on my channel and you can go and watch this video on his channel. But what we're doing today is something slightly different because we wanted to do something like we were kind of experiencing in the old days when we used to watch YouTube, where people would have the same video across two parts on different channels, which we thought was a cool idea. So we thought, what was something that was applicable to both of our channel styles? So I'm obviously more of a music related channel, whereas Caligeur is more to do with video games, films, comics, that kind of area. So, and then Caligeur came up with the brilliant idea of, I know, why don't we review all the James Bond theme tunes, because he's a big James Bond fan, and I'll be the first to admit that there are some pretty cracking theme tunes, so I thought, yeah, why not? So what we're going to do is, on this video, we're going to be reviewing all of the James Bond themes from 1962, Dr. No, up to For Your Eyes Only in 1981, and then in part 2, which is coming out at the exact same time as this, which I'll put in an iCard, either up here or up here, and I'll put in the description and also on an end card, we will be doing all of the ones on Caligeur's channel from 1981 up to present day. So we thought for the first one, the main original James Bond theme, that we would both kind of do a joint review of that. So I'll play some of that now, and then afterwards I'll get on to some of mine and his thoughts on the ones that we kind of picked for each other, because the plan was that we'd alternate between the theme tunes. So I'd do the theme tune for the second one, he'd do the one for the third, etc, etc. So let's get on with it. So hello everybody, and this is, as you probably saw from the title card, a cross-channel collaboration of me and my good buddy Caligeur, represented by Supreme Supervillain Mr. Dr. Evil. And so it is going to be our job over the next two videos, one on this channel, one on Caligeur's channel, to review all of the James Bond themes. And we are starting with the James Bond theme from Dr. No.
Alright, so the main theme, composed by Monty Norman and done by the John Barry Orchestra for its appearance in Dr. No. It's used in pretty much every James Bond film. Usually is like an action scene backing music, but also it's a lot of the themes make sort of minor musical references to it. It's up there with it's a classic theme. It goes up there with Indiana, like classic film themes like Indiana Jones, Batman, Star Wars, all of these instantly recognizable things that are synonymous with the series. The main Bond theme is sort of, it represents James Bond. It's completely synonymous with it. It's effective. It's not like really big and grand, but it's got like a power to it, but it also has like a refinement, and that's James Bond.
I mean, I was going to make a similar point actually. For me, a lot of Bond themes, and I'll elaborate on this going forward in my segments, to me, a good Bond theme represents all the aspects of the character. And for me, this does that. You know, the sinister orchestral intro and the beat that kind of have that sinister aspect to it. The surf rock guitars that add a kind of dark, mysterious, almost kind of swagger element to it. The burst of orchestra and the sort of bombast of that show the kind of action hero and the dynamism of it, and like the suave charm, I suppose, as well comes through in a lot of how the orchestra's used. You know, it laid the groundwork for every single other like James Bond theme to follow, in that that's how you do it. You know, you make the music reflect all the aspects of the character. Like Indiana Jones, you hear that theme and you kind of think of this very kind of like, you know, renegade figure, this, you know, really like dynamic hero type. So I think as a theme, it does a fantastic job. It's obviously iconic and up there with some of the best themes in cinema. And yeah, I don't have a bad word to say about it, in honesty. So now we will move on to alternating. And so the next thing you'll see is me doing From Russia with Love from, I believe, 1964. And then you will be doing
Goldfinger.
So I'll cut to me discussing Matt Monro's From Russia with Love. So the first one I'll be covering individually is From Russia with Love by Matt Monro from the 1963 film of the same name. And I will say that while it maybe isn't the most typical of Bond themes in terms of what I think they should kind of cover, kind of energy-wise, if you like, I do still think it's very good. For starters, I think that the strings in the intro are absolutely classic kind of 1960s film fare. They have a kind of romantic sound to them, which in itself is kind of reinforced by Matt Monro's vocals on here, which kind of have a very romantic crooning quality. And I think in the same way, the instrumental, which is kind of that stereotypical Russian folk sound, I guess you could say, also has that similar romantic vibe to it. Although I would say that kind of mirroring the dichotomy of Bond as a character, it has this kind of romantic sound to it, I guess, on the surface of it. But then when you look into some of the melodies that are being played on the string instrument, I think maybe it's a mandolin, or I'm not quite sure, but some of the melodies from both the vocals and the instruments in the instrumental have a kind of sinister undertone to them, which I think also, again, works to kind of illustrate that dichotomy of Bond as this kind of romantic, kind of suave character, but also kind of involved in dark, deep spy business. And so I think the kind of clashing vibes or tones in the song really work to kind of reinforce those character traits. And while maybe it isn't as dynamic or as fast-paced or as kind of grandiose as maybe I would like the ultimate Bond theme to be, it still is a very, very good one.
Russia with love, I fly to you.
So for my first James Bond theme, we've got the title track to 1964's Goldfinger, the first of the 3 tracks in the series performed by Dame Shirley Bassey. The song was written by Anthony Newley and was composed by John Barry, who continued to work on the Bond themes up until The Living Daylights, so from here on out I won't be mentioning him. Now, I know saying this is probably going to make the rest of my segments feel a bit underwhelming, but I'm pretty positive in the assertion that this is the best and most definitive Bond theme to accompany Goldfinger as the definitive Bond film and Sean Connery as the definitive Bond actor. Coincidentally enough, Goldfinger is also undeniably the first real Bond theme, as Dr. No used the main Bond theme in its opening credits, and From Russia with Love's title song is only played in the credits. And in that role, for me, Goldfinger embodies everything a Bond theme should be. In both instrument and vocals, it's bombastic and grand, with Bassey's powerful vocal style setting it apart from other themes that really draws you into the song. Yet it also has an elegance to it that comes with the style it's sung in, as well as the very orchestral sounds of the brass and strings that perfectly combine into what I think is the absolute gold standard for Bond themes. I don't think my music describing abilities can really describe how good I think Goldfinger is, so it's something that you definitely need to hear for yourself, either just as the song or part of the film's opening. But if I had to describe it visually, it'd be the scene in Live and Let Die where the woman's performing the theme song from that film. If a Bond theme can have equal parts power and presence, but also have the funk of, well, something I guess performed in a soul club, then it's good in my books. Also, all of this good stuff also makes it a good instrumental, allowing it to be used as a leitmotif across the film as a sort of theme for Auric Goldfinger, the titular villain, and as well as just sounding pleasant, it sounds sort of excellently represents him as a character, a powerful foe to Bond who wallows in the luxuries and style of gold and his immense wealth.
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
So yeah, I like this one. Very solid overall.
Goldfinger, he's the man with the Midas touch.
The next one is Thunderball by Tom Jones from the 1965 film of the same name, and I'm saying this now, this might be my favourite Bond theme ever, because it takes every single trait that I loved about the original theme and just amplifies it to a million, like the kind of bombast and dynamism is put forward by the brilliantly arranged string and brass sections, which just have just the melodies that are played right in the introduction from the horns just absolutely come blasting right through the gates and just have this amazing scale and bombast and dynamism to them, which is incredible. And the very sinister sound of the vocals and the instrumentals as well also kind of have that mysterious undercurrent to them. And Tom Jones, his vocals are absolutely incredible, and they just take the drama to the absolute next level on here. Like, it is incredible. Again, it's that thing of taking taking all the qualities of the original, the kind of romantic tendencies, the bombast, the mystery, and just kind of amplifying it to a billion, and I absolutely love that.
So he strikes like thunderbolt.
My second song is the theme for 1967's You Only Live Twice, written by Leslie Bricusse. I'm going to go with Leslie Bricusse. And sung by Nancy Sinatra. Out of all the songs covered so far, this one stands out for being less grandiose, particularly when compared to Goldfinger and Thunderball, which results in giving Yolt a very serene and dreamlike feeling that carries across every element of this track, from the almost hypnotic opening beats to the calm rhythm in combination with the wonderful and slow vocals, helped by the strict rhyming pattern and the constant repetition of certain words and phrases. The song's smoothness helps to make a good leitmotif for the film's wide establishing shots, which, whilst not as frequent as my previous entry, adds a lot to the viewing experience. Sure, You Only Live Twice is not the most shining example of a classic Bond theme, but it does subvert the high bar that Goldfinger set, and does so distinctly and with enough quality that it's understandable why it's considered one of the best. It's different, but good.
Why do Chinese girls taste different from all other girls?
You only live twice, or so it seems.
The next one is We Have All the Time in the World by Louis Armstrong from the 1969 film On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And while this one is definitely a bit more of a cheery, kind of laid-back mood, which does kind of veto the thing I said earlier about my favourite Bond themes having to kind of encapsulate the kind of aspects of the character. While that doesn't really do that here, just because of how starkly different the mood is to a lot of the ones that I've covered already, I still think that the song itself is absolutely incredible, and so I can't really mark it down at all, to be honest, because I think that the drums and the guitar work very, very well together as a bass in the instrumental, and just kind of have a very jolly vibe to them, but also like not so jolly that it would feel out of place in a James Bond film, if you get what I mean. And I think, again, going back to a point I made about the Matt Monro song, the string arrangements on this are so lush. Like, that's the one thing about kind of 50s and 60s era films that I think they absolutely got right, was that their string arrangements were always top notch, and that is certainly the case here. I think that Louis' vocals and his trumpet playing are absolutely fantastic here as well. They work very well to complement that same vibe that the track has going generally. And I think as well, like I said, while it maybe doesn't have that same kind of drama and dynamism and kind of sinister nature that the other ones do, I think just because the song is so fantastic, I don't really care about that all too much, because I was not thinking that Louis Armstrong would be the candidate to do a James Bond theme, and I suppose in a way, given what I've said, he almost isn't. But I think, again, just because the song is so strong, I can't mark it down at all.
We have all the time in the world.
Next is Diamonds Are Forever from 1971, written by Don Black and sung by Shirley Bassey as the theme to Sean Connery's final Bond film until his appearance in Never Say Never Again. Although at a first glance it sounds a lot different from Bassey's previous outing in the Bond series, I think it can be argued that this track acts as a good final piece to the first era of 007, combining the slow, lulling pace of From Russia with Love and You Only Live Twice, as well as the powerful, dramatic vocals akin to Goldfinger and Thunderball. Also, though I'm personally not as big of a fan of this as Goldfinger, it's a pretty effective Bond theme nevertheless. In other news, the vocals are still just as good, and like pretty much the rest of the Connery themes, I think the lyrics themselves are good. It makes for a good Bond theme, it makes for a pretty good song, and a good way to end off the first era of James Bond.
Welcome to hell, Blofeld.
Diamonds are forever, 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 forever.
The next one is Live and Let Die from the film of the same name from 1973 by Paul McCartney and Wings, and I was so glad I got this one because I absolutely love it. I would say it's probably my second favourite as opposed to Thunderball, but it's a very close one because I think, again, every aspect of this theme is done absolutely masterfully. Like, the pianos in the intro have an obviously very Beatle-ish tone to them, which makes sense given that it is one of the Beatles, and then I think the backing vocals are done very well, but then obviously when the orchestra kicks in, it just goes right into high gear. Like, that guitar riff is absolutely classic. The pace is really, really frantic and full on. The orchestra is done brilliantly, like the bursts of brass throughout and the woodwinds just create, again, that fast drama, that dynamism that you always want from Bond themes, which is absolutely fantastic. Like, this is really, really full on, and that is absolutely not a bad thing at all. And I would say that while the reggae switch does kind of come out of nowhere, I still do think it works very well, despite how unlike everything else in the song it is. And I think as well, the way they go right from that very different reggae style back into the kind of more frantic main part is very, very well done. And I think, again, even after that, the way they kind of pivot from the frantic, fast-paced bit back to the piano ballad section and then back again just shows that no matter how all over the place this song seems on paper, because it does go from like one style to another and then back to it and then back to the other, like, it's just so frantic, but the way it's executed is absolutely flawless. So I tip my cap to the whole team here.
Following on from that, we have my first Roger Moore theme with The Man with the Golden Gun from 1974, written again by Don Black and performed by Lulu. I'm just going to get my thoughts straight out for this one. This theme is probably the weakest one I've covered so far. I mean, it's not terrible by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, the instrumental is pretty great. It opens with some nice brass instruments, a few funky guitars, and whatever the heck is making this noise. And that's really reflected in the song's instrumental use, such as in the chase scene with a bunch of martial artists. The introduction conveys a hectic use of tension very well, and the rest has a sort of swanky feel with the orchestral trumpets and the little kick drumming that goes so well with James Bond. When it comes to the vocals, however, now, I'm not saying Lulu is a bad singer. I think she's actually pretty good, and her performance pretty well matches my envisioned idea of how a Bond theme should be sung, although not to the same extent as some of the earlier songs mentioned. But the lyrics are just not that good. Just for comparison's sake, let's put them side by side with Goldfinger, because both of them are fundamentally villain songs. In Goldfinger, the imagery of gold is used to represent and convey Auric Goldfinger as a character without just telling you, and it still manages to be a good song in the process. As I mentioned before, the instrumental pretty well manages to characterise the villain, so the whole song feels kind of built around it, and that makes it thematically appropriate to be the theme for the film. But in Golden Gun, the lyrics just describe Francisco Scaramanga directly. I mean, the first line is literally this.
He has a powerful weapon. He charges a million at a shot. And assassin, second to none, the man with the golden gun.
You can't get more obvious than that. Apparently the lyrics have been described as having a lot of innuendos in the past, but I don't really see it. And whilst the relatively shallow lyrics don't entirely ruin the song's appeal as a James Bond theme, in that regard it's perfectly fine, they prohibit the value of the song when it's separated from the film and doesn't really add anything to the viewing experience, because all of that characterization is still present in the film. So in short, it's not the best, really.
You're not thinking that.
I sure am, boy. Never heard of Evel Knievel?
Love is required whenever he's hired. It comes just before the kill. No one can catch him, no hitman can match him.
The next one is Nobody Does It Better by Carly Simon from the 1977 film The Spy Who Loved Me. And I do quite like this song on the head of it. Like, I think the combination of the piano and the vocals work very, very well here. I think the way that Carly goes from the kind of subdued delivery in the intro into a more kind of dramatic, much more louder and kind of projected vocal delivery in the more kind of orchestral parts is very, very nice. And again, linking to that, I do think that the way the drums and the string arrangements complement the piano that was used in the intro is very, very well done. And again, I think that the string arrangements, as on pretty much every Bond theme, are done very, very well here. I would say that, kind of like the Louis Armstrong theme though, there's not really anything about it that screams Bond to me necessarily. Like, yes, I like the pianos and the drums, I like the way the string arrangements are used, and I like Carly Simon's vocal delivery quite a bit, but there's not really a lot that screamed Bond to me. I mean, I suppose there is that kind of dramatic element to it, but I just don't know. There's not really anything about it that seems like it would fit a Bond theme. And I know I said the same thing for the Louis Armstrong theme, and I still love that. But I think just as a song, I prefer the Louis Armstrong one. There's not really any good reason why I like this any less, but it's something about it's just not clicking with me in the same way. Like, I know that the same way that Louis Armstrong wasn't exactly like a Bond theme, this one isn't either, but I just prefer this one a bit less, I guess. Like, it's still a great song on its own, don't get me wrong, but I don't know, there's something about the Louis Armstrong one that just does something more for me that this one kind of doesn't.
And for my final song for this first part is also the last Bond theme sung by Dame Shirley Bassey, 1979's Moonraker. Very famously, the one that wasn't sung by Kate Bush. You know, it's a little music fact for all you out there. Anyways, compared to Bassey's previous two songs, this one is definitely the weakest, both as a theme and just as a song in general. Much like Diamonds Are Forever, this song has a sort of slow, more eloquent tone, and is similarly still complemented by Bassey's powerful vocals, with the exception that in Moonraker, it never really gets good. It doesn't have an escalation into a powerful moment that really gets you hooked into the experience. It's just like the musical equivalent of a flatline. There's a time and place for more gentle Bond themes, and like with You Only Live Twice, they can work to pretty high degrees, but this just doesn't work for me. It doesn't even really capture the essence of the film all that well either, as it could use a bigger and grander tune considering the film ends in a fucking space battle.
My God, what's Bond doing?
I think he's attempting re-entry, sir.
Funnily enough, it seems like Moonraker is the least popular of the three Bassey themes, because it was the least impactful, it was the least promoted, and it wasn't really performed often by her in the decades after. So I guess in both the public consciousness and in my own opinion, Moonraker fails to reach the heights that Bassey previously achieved, and then just comes crashing back down to earth.
And the last one that I'm covering for this part is For Your Eyes Only by Sheena Easton from the 1981 film of the same name. And I'd say that this is probably the first real one where I'm just kind of like, meh. Because it's just like the same criticisms I had for the last track, but kind of amplified. Because again, there's nothing really about orchestral power ballads that scream Bond to me. I mean, I guess there is that element of drama, and like I've said a billion times already, the Louis Armstrong one didn't have that either, but I just prefer that as a song. And I think this song, more than any other that we've had so far, and that we probably will have more of in the second part, is that I understand the want to move for a more contemporary sound, hence why they probably got Sheena Easton to do this thing, because I think she was quite a big pop star at the time. I'm not big on history, but I think she was. But I think that the decision to have a very 80s themed kind of song to go with it, like the kind of loungy synths and the keyboards and the way the drums sound, is very, very 80s. But I think unlike the last one, which did kind of have that retro film sound to it with the use of string arrangements and the way the drums sounded, and everything sounded very organic and very full, whereas because of how 80s this sounds, it just kind of doesn't have that same, like even the Carly Simon theme, while I said it wasn't exactly my favourite, it still had that kind of retro 60s film sound that I did quite like, whereas this, because of how modern it tries to sound, it maybe doesn't end up being executed all that well. Actually, you know what, kind of backtracking on what I just said, I do think there are elements of this instrumental that work. Like, I think the drums are fairly nice, and I think some of the pianos, especially one of the grand pianos, are done very, very well and have this very glistening quality to them, which is very nice. But I think it comes back to that thing of the Bond themes, to me, they're meant to encapsulate the character of being this kind of romantic, bombastic, kind of eccentric, mysterious kind of character. And even the Carly Simon one, it had that kind of drama, but also because of the kind of dejected tone, had a kind of turmoil to it, which was quite interesting. Whereas this one, as much as it is a very kind of projected, like quintessential power ballad type sound, I don't feel that same kind of emotional kind of depth or complexity of character, even like I did with the Carly Simon one, and so I think that's where it falls a little bit short. So there you have it, we've covered all the Bond themes from 1962 up to 1981. And if you go onto Caligeur's video, which is up now, which will be either in the description, in an iCard, or on the end screen, we do all the Bond themes from 1981 up to present day. So if you enjoyed this video, which I certainly did, because it was cool doing something a little bit different on this channel, but if you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you'll love the one on Caligeur's channel, because I imagine, even on this video, because I haven't received his parts yet, obviously, because I've got to edit this together, but I'm sure that his insights will just be next level. So if you really want more of that, I would say that you should go and watch the second part on his channel, and go watch all his videos. He's a great guy, he makes great content. So I'll see you lot over there if you want to go and watch the second part, and until next time from me, I'll see you all later.